الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء، واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم، ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. وبعد، فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله، وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم، وشر الأمور محدثاتها، وكل محدثة بدعة، وكل بدعة ضلالة، وكل ضلالة في النار. أما بعد, dear brothers and sisters, listeners and viewers, thank you very much for joining us in this Tafseer session. We are still going through the story of Joseph, peace be upon him, as it appeared in the Holy Quran. Just to remind you, there is a whole chapter in Al-Quran that is called Yusuf, Surat Yusuf, which means chapter Joseph, and the whole chapter is just dedicated for the story of Joseph, from the very beginning of the surah to the very end of the surah. And it is the only story in the Quran that is narrated in one place completely. It is the only surah. Perhaps there is another surah which is Nuh, but it's much shorter. And there are other surahs called Hud, which is another prophet, and Ibrahim, Surat Maryam, Mary. But the surah, although these chapters, they do tell the stories of Noah, Maryam, they tell the story of Hud, but they're not, the whole surah is not dedicated for the story of the prophets and Maryam, but they are also bringing other elements into the chapter. But this chapter is wholly dedicated for the life, the very beginning of the life of Joseph, through some of his trials until the end of his life. It is a fantastic surah. It is a fantastic chapter, as all the chapters in Al-Quran. And it is said that if you are sad or you're feeling depressed, you will feel much better if you read the surah, the whole of the surah. So reading the surah, learning from it, how a very noble prophet of Allah, peace be upon him, as I always say, he's a prophet, a son of a prophet, a grandson of a prophet, a great grandson of a prophet. So his name is Jacob, the son of, his name is Joseph, the son of Jacob, the son of Isaac, the son of Abraham. And yet he had his share of trials. Also, I feel that there is a parable between what we are going through now and what the people in Egypt went at the time of Joseph, when we talked about famine and the 7 years that are dry years, and these are the years and preceded by good years. In the dream of the king of that time, we can really also learn lessons into our lives and believe that, I hope that it's not going to be many years for the COVID-19, but indeed it will be much less than that by the will of Allah Almighty. But anyway, we need to learn about other people and know that these trials and tests are a destiny, and it may look, as we've already seen in the life of Yusuf, it may look bad, but really the ending is really fantastic. And also, before I forget, Eid Mubarak, may Allah accept from you, and may Allah return you to many Ramadans to come and accept all your good deeds. And I also look forward together to see the next Eid, which is the Eid of sacrifice, in about 2 months' time. Let's just recall the last 2 or 3 verses from last week. وقال الملك ائتوني به أستخلصه لنفسي فلما كلمه قال إنك اليوم لدينا مكين أمين. Let me just recite that in the way it should be recited, and then I come back to these previous 3 or 4 ayat from last week. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. وقال الملك ائتوني به أستخلصه لنفسي فلما كلمه قال إنك اليوم لدينا مكين أمين. قال اجعلني على خزائن الأرض إني حفيظ عليم. وكذلك مكنا ليوسف في الأرض يتبوأ منها حيث يشاء نصيب برحمتنا من نشاء ولا نضيع أجر المحسنين ولأجر الآخرة خير للذين آمنوا وكانوا يتقون. The king indeed was very impressed by the way Yusuf interpreted the dream and how Yusuf came across. It's not only interpreting the dream, but his integrity and the way he insisted not to leave prison until he is acquitted, until he is proven innocent, until the case, if you like, is looked at again. And Yusuf wanted to prove to everyone that he was innocent. The king did that, and his innocence was very clear. His name was cleared. Yusuf not only left prison, but he left it with his honor. He left it with his integrity. He left it acquitted from any accusation he received. Of course, the king was also impressed by the way Yusuf interpreted the dream. And in today's understanding, if a trial like that could have been predicted somehow well before it happens, then we would have been more ready and more prepared. In this case, it was obvious the 7 years of drought were in the horizon, but before these 7 years of drought, there were good 7 years. So there was plenty of time to prepare to the time to come. But if that dream was not interpreted, then people would have just lived their normal life, consumed everything they produced in the 7 good years, maybe saved some money, which would have made very little difference if you couldn't buy food with that money. So indeed, Yusuf, brought salvation to Egypt, brought a solution to a problem that hasn't happened yet. Of course, we may not, unfortunately, believe in dreams. Many people may not subscribe to dreams or their interpretation, although we know that dreams can come true. But also we have other means of looking into what is to come and prepare for it. But that is beyond the scope of tafsir. I'm just saying. I leave it to you to think of that. So the king was very impressed. He asked for them to bring Yusuf to him, and the king said, "Bring him to me, that I may attach him to my person." So he wanted Yusuf for himself, and as a king, whoever is attached to the king, then he will be in the best position you can think of. Then when he spoke to him, that is to Joseph, he said, "Verily this day you are with us, high in rank and fully trusted." So Yusuf now is leaving prison, fully acquitted, in a very honorable way, and then he is going to be close to the king, not close to some of the ADs of the king or some of the ministers of the king, or his attached to someone attached to him, but Yusuf was reporting directly to the king, because the king could see the quality of Yusuf, peace be upon him. قال اجعلني, as we explained last week, قال اجعلني على خزائن الأرض إني حفيظ عليم. Joseph said, "Set me over the storehouses of the land. I will indeed guard them with full knowledge." So Hafidun Alim, as a minister of finance in Egypt in place of Al-Aziz. Now, I did challenge that. In my opinion, that is just a translation from some of the books, just to make it easier for me, rather than thinking of a translation of a verse. I believe that Khaza'in al-Ard, the land storehouses, to administer them, was a person who reports to Al-Aziz, to the Minister of Treasury. But now Yusuf is reporting directly to the king, responsible for the storehouses. Not necessarily that at that time he was appointed as Al-Aziz. And also Al-Aziz, just in case you read tafsir, you need also to read more than one book to be able to really arrive at the best interpretation. Al-Aziz could not have been dead, because his wife was very keen to prove her innocence also. So as he knows that I haven't cheated him, etc., as she announced when an inquiry, if you like, by the king was conducted. She did say that Yusuf was innocent, but also she said that she wanted her husband to know that she didn't do, of course she tried her very, very best, but she actually didn't do anything bad. So I believe that Yusuf was appointed, and Yusuf was really looking to do a fantastic job in a very difficult time for Egypt. So he was not really, if you think about it, he was asking to be in charge of solving a huge problem, a famine for 7 years for Egypt, which has always been a huge place, not today. In fact, Egypt was in the past was the countries which is now called Egypt and Sudan, and until very in the late 1900s and early 20th century, later on, that they were separated into countries. So Egypt was, and if you like, in today's language, Egypt was a superpower. Egypt was very civilized compared with the surrounding countries, and it was, if you like, the direction of people to seek knowledge and to seek wealth at that time. So Yusuf, for that place to go through famine, is not an easy problem to solve. So Yusuf wanted not only to interpret the dream, but he wanted to be responsible for doing the right thing required. Because remember, there were 7 good years. And if you say, okay, we have good 7 years, who says that, after this first year, it's going to be a bad year? So a year after year, for 7 years, it was fantastic. They were fantastic years, plenty of rain, plenty of crops, no problem. But if people did not save for the next 7 bad years with drought and famine, then it would have been a huge problem and people would have perished. And in history, famine and drought affect civilizations fundamentally and in a very bad way. So وكذلك مكنا ليوسف في الأرض يتبوأ منها حيث يشاء نصيب برحمتنا من نشاء ولا نضيع أجر المحسنين. Now Yusuf, who was locked into a prison for several years, now he has the whole land, a huge land, to go wherever he needs to be, to conduct his to fulfill his duty, which was asked by Yusuf and assigned by the king. نصيب برحمتنا من نشاء. We bestow of our mercy on whom we please. That is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying. So being in a prison, think about it. If he wasn't put in a prison, if he was outside while these 2 people came in, one of them was executed and the other one survived, they wouldn't have met Yusuf, and then they wouldn't have recommended Yusuf for the king to interpret his dream. So what I'm inviting you, dear brothers and sisters and listeners and viewers, to really think, if you are, as a person, going through a bad patch or a bad time, or if you think your family or your community, or indeed the country, or as people think, the whole world is going through bad times, but remember that this could be for something better to come. And if you think about it, you'll find plenty of that. But after it happens, usually people look back and say, yes, it was maybe difficult times for me as a person, or for my family, or for my community, country, or the world, but it was for the better. They realize that later on. But before they do so, while you are in the present time, remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants good to come to people. And in the hadith, وَالْخَيْرُ بَيْنَ يَدَيْكَ وَالشَّرُّ لَيْسَ إِلَيْكَ. There is a supplication that is saying that goodness is between the hands of Allah and evil is not to him. So although it may appear to be evil, but then it unfolds to something which is good. نصيب برحمتنا من نشاء ولا نضيع أجر المحسنين. And we make not to be lost the reward of the good doers, al-muhsinin, and I explained that last week. If you really want to know more, please refer to last week's lecture or tafsir. So Allah will never waste the good doing of people. If you think you have not been rewarded, recognized for what you have done, although as a Muslim, you need to have your intention for the sake of Allah always. And I advise everybody to do the same. Do whatever goodness and good you can, and think not of the immediate reward. Think of the hereafter. Think that you will be recognized by the Almighty, the Creator, and think that if you have not been rewarded today, then wait until a more fantastic time will come, and you may be rewarded in a way you never thought, and in a time that you really needed that reward. وَلَأَجْرُ الْآخِرَةِ خَيْرٌ لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَكَانُوا يَتَّقُونَ. And verily, the reward of the hereafter is better for those who believe and use to fear Allah and keep their duty to Him by abstaining from all kinds of sins and evil deeds, and by performing all kinds of righteous good deeds. So again, I remind you, whatever you do, think of the hereafter, because it is more permanent. While we are living on this earth, 60 years, 70 years, maybe more, maybe less, but it is short. And also it is beset with trials and beset with patches of sadness, patches of time that could have been better. Although, as I said, things can unfold to become better, so be patient. But also, whatever you do, ask for the reward in the hereafter, al-akhirah, because it is permanent. Whatever we have today, dear brothers and sisters, either there is a possibility that we may lose it, or we may leave it behind us. And we can see when we have long life, for example, although we think, yes, we are increasing in years, but we are not the same. Someone who is in his 60s or 70s or 80s, it's not the same as that young chap in their 20s or 30s or 40s. So indeed, we are losing all the time. But in the hereafter, the reward is permanent. Youth is always there. No sickness. You never get tired. You never get bored. You will never be threatened to wake up one day and you have lost whatever you have. So it is all good. People in the hereafter, in the paradise, will be at the age of 33. They will be as tall as Adam, 60 yards tall, and they will be as handsome and beautiful as Joseph in this story. وَلَأَجْرُ الْآخِرَةِ خَيْرٌ لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. For those who believe and they are pious, then the reward in the hereafter is even better. Albeit that these people, as Yusuf himself, was rewarded for his patience, was rewarded for his piety, was rewarded for his holding his ground for the values of Islam that he inherited from his father and grandfather and great-grandfather. He would never deviate from that at all. We move on, dear brothers and sisters, and just to remind you, I will read the verse after that. It's verse number 58, if you are trying to follow with me. وَجَاءَ إِخْوَةُ يُوسُفَ فَدَخَلُوا عَلَيْهِ فَعَرَفَهُمْ وَهُمْ لَهُ مُنْكِرُونَ. And Yusuf's brethren came and they entered unto him, and he recognized them, but they recognized him not. Okay, so now the whole scene is changed. And now you'll realize that we are several years between verse 57 and 58. There are more than 7 years, at least. And we'll know why. But what is really, what is untold, because it's already been mentioned in the interpretation of the dream, there will be 7 years of hardship, 7 years of drought, 7 years of famine. So this passed. They need excellent management to make use of that wealth, and the crops are to be stored, as in the interpretation, apart from some that people ate. So people needed during these 7 years to store in the storehouses that Yusuf wanted to administer as much as they can in the husk, in the ears, so as they can last longer and they can resist all sorts of disease and bugs and fungi and etc. So all of that is not really mentioned again. It's already there, and we believe that the interpretation will come true. So why saying all of that? But that is part of the tafsir, that when you read in any tafsir, Ibn Kathir, for example, Ibn Jarir al-Tabari, I have been asked what sort of tafsir you use. I mean, this is what I tell you is the result of reading many tafsirs throughout my life, and also being abreast in a reasonable good way of the Arabic language, because you need to master that to be able to fully understand. So you could refer to Tabari or Ibn Kathir, or the tafsir of Ash-Shukani, or other tafsirs. You will find them filling these, if you like, if you call them gaps, but they're not gaps because they are already mentioned, and this is the beauty of the Quran, and this is conspicuous of the Book of Allah, that it is succinct and really condensed. So during the time between ayah 57 or verse 57 and 58, there was a drought, and people, there were 7 years of good years. These are the 7 healthy fat cows. So and Yusuf was the one who actually managed these 7 years, and how the crops are collected and how they are consumed, etc. And now we are into within the 7 years of drought, the skinny or lean cows that they devoured the fat cows. So now it says that the brothers of Yusuf entered unto him. He recognized them, but they did not recognize. He recognized them, but they did not recognize him. So all of the rest of the story is understood. There is no need to repeat. Why are they here? They are here. They came from a long way. They are from the land of Canaan, Canaanite, or Palestine. So they came all the way. So that the drought did not affect Egypt. It affected all of Egypt and all the surrounding localities and, if you like, places or countries. And they came to buy food, because Egypt, with the management of Yusuf during the drought, did not say, oh, but we managed our food, we'll consume the food, and we don't want to give anyone for any price, because food, if it is in short supply, is priceless, such as water. It is even more priceless, so people wouldn't even sell it. I don't know if I want to make parables, but I refrain from that. But you know, if you have the ability to save your own people, it would be even nicer to save others. And that was the policy of Egypt, is really not to restrict the contribution and management of food supply within Egypt, but to expand that to the surrounding areas. Because remember, even at that time, you could still say the world is small. You know, people are connected. You know, drawing borders, you know, sort of hard borders like that is meaningless. If Egypt, let us say Egypt only looked after themselves and the people surrounding Egypt were not looked after, then after they go through the 7 years of drought, what is the use? Because these people surrounding Egypt, they bring goods into Egypt that may not be available in Egypt. They buy from Egypt. So if you lose that, you lose a market. You lose. There is a problem in the supply chain. But of course, that is not mentioned. But we, after thousands of years, we can think of that. You can't just let people. You live and let others die. Let others without help. If you can share, then that is a better solution, and that's what Yusuf did. So we understand now from just one ayah that they came from another place adjacent to Egypt for food. They wanted to buy some food because they are in short, and we know that that was allowed. So the policy of Egypt is really to help the surrounding areas and the people who came from that. And also, they have the policy that if a person comes with a camel, they'll give him a camel load of food for a whole year. But that's it. If a person came with 3-4 camels and he said, oh, I have a big family behind me, they will not give him. They will give him only a camel's load, which is, this is how you manage things. So one person with a camel or more, he gets a camel's load, 1 camel's load of food. So if people are representing a family or representing a tribe, they need to come in many persons. So as everyone is given a camel load of food for a whole year. Also, it means that that same person will not be able to get food after 6 months, say. So if he gets a camel's load and 6 months later that person comes, then his name will be in the register. Say, I'm sorry, you had your share, because it is a scarce resource now, and we need to share. This is part of sharing. You give, but also you limit your ration, if you like, ration your supply. So these came from a long distance. They are after food. And by the way, also I want to say that Yusuf himself and the king and the royal attaches, if you like, the people attached to the king, his soldiers, they only ate 1 meal per day. So each day they had 1 meal in the middle of the day, not 3 meals, not breakfast, lunch, dinner, or supper, snacks, none of that. They needed, it's a time to survive, not a time of anything else. It's not a time for luxury. So the king himself wanted to give an example to his people, to his subjects. Yusuf, a prophet of Allah, peace be upon him, gave he was a role model too. So he only ate once a day, so as the food will go longer. You can survive on a meal a day. If you eat 3 meals a day, then the food may not last for long. It may last only 1/3 of the time or 1/2 of the time, depending on people's way of and their habits of eating. So that's I wanted to say. There are also reports that the king himself followed Islam, which is the religion of Joseph, but that is, in my opinion, whether it happened or not, the king had full trust in Joseph. Joseph wanted to do that, to give the best example of a prophet to people, because the best way to communicate your belief is really to act upon it, to be helpful for people. They would see what you do, what the benefit coming to them in terms of moral conduct, in terms of being nice, being helpful, being cheerful to others. And that's exactly what Yusuf was. So his brothers came, they entered. Now he is most probably, in my opinion, he is Al-Aziz now. After all these years, perhaps the original treasurer or minister of treasury or the first minister passed away, and Yusuf now is appointed in his place. So he is very influential, not in a in a small place or within a tribe or within a family, but within Egypt. As I said, it was a superpower at that time, and for a very long time it was. And even today, it has heavy weight globally. So they came, and Yusuf is in that position. And of course, when they threw him in the well, he was a little kid, and people changed. But then they have been adults at that time. Maybe they grew, or for sure they grew older after many years, several years in prison. At least 7 good years passed, and part of the 7 years, maybe 2 or so. And before that, when he was in the palace of Al-Aziz, you're talking maybe 20 years, maybe more. So a child, after all these years, is beyond recognition. And also, it doesn't cross their mind that this little kid that they threw in a well against the wishes of his dad, they snatched him from the love of his dad into the darkness of the well. They never thought he would be in such a high status. How can they recognize him? But he did. How could he forget? He knew them. They were 10, by the way, everyone with a camel. So he gave them the food they needed. And also, by the way, it was not for free, so they had to buy that food. But at that time, as you know, people didn't always use silver or gold or coins. They also exchanged commodities for a very long time. Even today, people do exchange. So, you give someone, if you like, you buy their printer and you give them an old phone or something like that. People do that, but it is less. You have the currency as the mean of exchange. But they brought some goods, and then they got their share of food for their families. Now, ولما جهزهم بجهازهم قال ائتوني بأخ لكم من أبيكم ألا ترون أني أوفي الكيل وأنا خير المنزلين. So there is a gap, if you like, in between verse 58 and 59, which is untold, but we can deduce a lot of information. So he's saying to them, and when he had furnished them forth with provisions, so they had their provisions of food, he said, bring me a brother of yours from your father. And he meant Benjamin, see you not that I give full measure and that I am the best of the best? ألا ترون أني أوفي الكيل وأنا خير المنزلين. So from that verse alone, we understand a lot. Of course, he didn't want to identify himself as Yusuf. For sure, that was not the idea. So he wouldn't have told them voluntarily and say, that, oh, I know that information. They will suspect. So what happened is that when they came, he put them up in apartments as guests, and he had a dialogue with them. He asked them, why are you here? They say, oh, we come from Canaan, from the land of Canaan, which is Palestine. And then he would ask, but in some of the interpretations, they say, oh, but you could be spies. They said, no, we not, our father is a prophet. His name is Yaqub, Jacob. And then, they started to have that dialogue, and then they will tell him. So they told him during that conversation, which is not mentioned, they told Yusuf about their lives. They said that we lost a brother, the youngest brother, who was lost in in the wilderness. Of course, they didn't tell him that they threw him in the well. And then, we have another brother who is staying with our dad. And by the way, Benjamin was also very much beloved by Jacob, Yaqub, and he did not come with them in this journey. So there were 10. Remember, there are 10 plus Benjamin plus Joseph. That's 12 brothers, and then his parents. Hence his dream, if you remember, 11. إني رأيت 11 كوكبا والشمس والقمر رأيتهم لي ساجدين. 11 planets, and the sun and the moon are prostrating for me. So 11, it means the 10 plus their brother plus the father and the mother. So he told them, bring that brother. Next time you come, bring that brother so as I can be sure that your story is a true story from what they already told him. So that is how we understand that verse. And when he had furnished them forth with provisions, he said, bring me a brother of yours from your father. So that is half a brother from their father, but not from the same mother. And then he said, Ala tarawna, I see you not. Do you not see that I give full measure and that I am the best of the best? وَأَنَا خَيْرُ الْمُنْزِلِينَ. I am the best host. I am the best one to provide. He was generous with them. He gave them perhaps enough and more. But he said, next year when you come, which means for sure, that was not the 7th year. So at least we know that. And he knew that there will be another year at least. He said, next year when you come, bring your brother, that brother you told me about, with you. So as I can give you provision for 11 camels, camel loads, the 10 of you and your brother. But if you don't bring him, if you come next time, the 10 of you without him, I will not give you anything. He wanted to see his other brother. فإن لم تأتوني به فلا كيل لكم عندي ولا تقربون. But if you bring him not to me, there shall be no measure of corn or wheat, etc., for you with me, nor shall you come near me. Don't think of it. You either come 11 of you next year, so as I can give you even more than this year. If you don't bring your other brother, perhaps I shall know that you're not telling the truth, and then you shall not come and ask for any food, any wheat, etc. قالوا سنراود عنه أباه وإنا لفاعلون. They said, we shall try to get permission for him from his father, and verily we shall do it. Now, the word سنراود is really to try, is the same as the one وَلَقَدْ رَاوَدْتُهُ عَنْ نَفْسِهِ فَاسْتَعْصَمْ. It's the same term that has been used for seducing Yusuf. So in the beginning, وَرَاوَدَتْهُ الَّتِي هُوَ فِي بَيْتِهَا عَنْ نَفْسِهِ. She tried to seduce him, and then she admitted that act of seduction. And the word used was راوَدَ, تراود, مراودة. This is the word in Arabic, and it is from the root word of ra and waw and da. So rawada. The same word is used here. They said, we will try to use our best, if you like, cunning ways with our dad to get to let off our brother. They knew their dad, they loved Benjamin, and they didn't want to leave him, not after Yusuf was lost. So they must have also told him that Benjamin is so much beloved by our father, and he wouldn't like him to leave, etc. So now they're saying Sanurawid, they said, we shall try to get permission for him. Well, Nurawid, it means that he will not agree, but then we'll try to convince him. And whatever he says in a negative way, we'll try to convince him otherwise. This is al-murawada. It means it is a process, just to go back to the word rawada, which we translated as seduce, if it is used in a specific context. But the word itself, rawada, it means that trying to get the other give in the resistance, whether it is mental or it is physical. So whatever you say to that person, you know that they're not going to agree. Like in this case, in the case of the wife of the treasurer, that was a young boy, and she needed to say something to him to convince him. It's not as straightforward. So the word was used, al-murawada. So she used her beauty, she prepared herself, she shut all the doors, and she started to say nice things to convince him. And of course he resisted. Then she tried again, and then he ran away, and she followed him, etc. The story as we told a few weeks back now. And then she came back with the women from the town, and she tried again. And here it is the same word used, but in a different context. It's a context that they wanted their father to let go of their brother, of course, youngest now brother, as far as they are concerned, not knowing that Yusuf is still alive, because he didn't want to let go of him. So they said, Sanurawidu, the same word, rawada, it means that we're going to try. He will say no. They knew that. And then we'll try and try again until we can bring our brother with us. وقال لفتيانه اجعلوا بضاعتهم في رحالهم لعلهم يعرفونها إذا انقلبوا إلى أهلهم لعلهم يرجعون. And Yusuf told his servants to put their money or whatever goods they brought into their bags so that they might know it when they go back to the people in order that they might come back. So he wanted, you see, Yusuf is trying to get his way. He wanted his brother to come. So what he said, he used a firm language with them. He said, look, you know, I have been good to you. I'm good with the measure. I gave you enough and I put you up. I am the best of the best. I was a good host to you. Please bring me that brother of yours. But also he said, but if you don't bring him, you have no food. So he used both, you know, to attract them to do something and almost warning them if they don't bring their brother. But also he did another thing, that the food, the commodity they brought, and in my opinion, it may have been something which is light and perhaps of value. He put it back into their bags, that is put on the camel. So he gave them the food, but he put back whatever they paid him. لعلهم يعرفونها إذا انقلبوا إلى أهلهم لعلهم يرجعون. So perhaps these people don't have enough. So if I give them their price back, they'll know that I'm a good man. They know my generosity. And also, it will encourage them to come back and bring the other brother with them. So he did all these things to ensure that they come back, because how can he know? Of course, he's a prophet. Allah can tell him, but also there are things that Allah leaves the prophets to be completely human, in a way that he doesn't tell them everything. He doesn't tell them the unseen. He doesn't all the unseen. Allah tells the prophet and the messenger what Allah wants to tell them. And sometimes they just behave, they go and they make decisions, they do things as other humans, based on their knowledge, based on their experience, based on their on the advice they get from the people surrounding them. Because these are role models. They're not angels. They need to show to people that people can be and can follow into their footsteps. So if they don't come back, they don't come back at all. And Yusuf also is committed to Egypt and committed to solving the problem of famine and committed to executing his duties and doing his very best. He's not going to leave all of that and follow his brothers and see where they are. You know, that was not really the way. The way is he stays where he is, but he makes a plan that they bring the other brothers. Why? So far we don't know, but perhaps later in the chapter it will become apparent. So now they go back. They don't know that their good is returned to them, but they have the food. They have what they came for. He did not deprive them. فلما رجعوا إلى أبيهم قالوا يا أبانا منع منا الكيل فأرسل معنا أخانا نكتل أو يكتل in some of the recitations, in some of the قراءات وإنا له لحافظون. So when they arrived immediately, so فلما with fa, which means that it came immediately after they arrived, they went to their father. So when they returned to their father, if you like, the fa is like immediately, they said, "Oh, our father, no more measure of grain shall we get unless we take our brother. So send our brother with us, and we shall get our measure, and truly we will guard him. Did you hear that? وَإِنَّا لَهُ لَحَافِظُونَ. We shall guard him. When did they say? When did they say that? When they snatched Yusuf from his dad. So their dad is not going to take that lightly. He hasn't forgotten Yusuf anyway. So now they're saying that we are unable to get any grain, any food from Egypt unless you allow Benjamin, our brother, to come with us. And of course, they told him, again, the Quran doesn't have to say, oh, they came back to their father and they said this and that and the other, because it's already been said. So why repeating that? So when they came, they just said this, فلما رجعوا إلى أبيهم قالوا يا أبانا منع منا الكيل فأرسل معنا أخانا نكتل وإنا له لحافظون. That we have been deprived from any more future measures of grain. So please send our brother with us, so as we can have that. So they told their father the story, and they said, وَإِنَّا لَهُ لَحَافِظُونَ, and we shall get our measure, and truly we will guard him. And truly we will guard him. And their father heard that before, and that led to the loss of his beloved son, Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam. So he's not going to take that lightly. He's not going to believe them. قال هل آمنكم عليه إلا كما أمنتكم على أخيه من قبل فالله خير حافظا وهو أرحم الراحمين. Can I entrust him to you except as I entrusted his brother Joseph to you aforetime? It's like saying, how can I trust you? I entrusted you with Yusuf before, and he's gone. He's never been back. How can I entrust you with Benjamin? قال هل آمنكم عليه إلا كما أمنتكم على أخيه من قبل فالله خير حافظا وهو أرحم الراحمين. Can I entrust him to you except as I entrusted his brother to you aforetime? But Allah is the best to guard, and He is the most merciful of those who show mercy. So again, Yaqub is a great believer in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He has a big heart. On the one hand, it's difficult to trust his sons again because of what happened before. Yusuf went with his brothers and he's never been back, apart from a shirt with false blood on it. And this has been for years. It's not as if it happened last year. Most people would lose hope after 20, 30 years of losing a child. I remember when I was a kid, my mother used to tell me how frustrating would it be for parents to lose their children. Because in the past, that happened. And even today, and in some countries, there are children who are lost on a daily basis. And my mother told me that the parents would love to see a body of their child rather than not seeing anything at all. Because at least they know he's come. But to know that a son or a daughter is lost, maybe somewhere in the world, but we don't know where, that would be extremely hard. So Yaqub, Jacob, told his sons that how can I entrust you with him as I entrusted you in Yusuf before, in the past. But then he relies on Allah. He believes in Allah. He says, فَاللَّهُ خَيْرٌ حَافِظًا وَهُوَ أَرْحَمُ الرَّاحِمِينَ. Allah is the most merciful of those who show mercy. Thank you very much for listening today. Inshallah, if Allah gives enough life, we shall know what happens. Will Yaqub allow Benjamin to go with his brothers or not? And how is that going to be? Thank you very much for listening. Wassalamu